welcome to Mona King Creative's Design Studio. Today I'm going to interview a very niche diversity and inclusion coach, Joe. Hello, say hello to everyone, Joe.
Hi everyone, hi Mona, thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. I met Joe when I was a startup at a NatWest mentoring program, and I found Joe very inspiring. And I can always resonate with Joe because, as you can see, I'm a minority as well. Running a business is very tough, but Joe and I both need to battle with unconscious bias and even discrimination. That's why I invited Joe for an interview today. So Joe, do you want to talk about your business briefly? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. I describe myself as an inclusion and belonging specialist. So I deliver keynotes at conferences, I run workshops, I train people, I also coach and mentor, mainly people in the recruiting, talent acquisition sector, or HR, or in the inclusion and belonging or inclusion and diversity sector. So I work with people and try and help organizations connect with their employees, create a better candidate experience in the hiring process, and try and create an environment where people can thrive and not feel marginalized or discriminated against in their organizations.
Yeah, cool. And also, because I know you as a male to female transgender. So could you talk about your transitioning journey? When did you realize that you were the girl? And what made you take the plunge to do this transition?
I think, like most people, you form this sense of identity when you're in your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so before puberty, around about 6, 7 years old. And most people go through that phase of their life, building their identity, their sense of self, without realizing that anything's untoward. But I sort of got to that realization around that age, where I had this feeling that things weren't quite right. The way I was treated, the way I was talked to, didn't really align. I just felt that there was something else inside me. And I kind of realized I had this two sort of voices in my head. I had the voice that I was supposed to be, the voice that I was brought up to be, but this other little voice in the back that was with me all my life, saying, "This isn't you. This is who you are." But because of the way society works, the way we have this sort of binary concept of gender still, that voice was never allowed to be heard. And I felt shame. I felt I had to hide it. And it wasn't until I got to my late 40s where the internet became more available. People started talking more about being trans, what transgender meant. And I suddenly realized that other people had a similar story to my own. I wasn't making this up. I wasn't unusual. What I was experiencing was real. And I think once you start to appreciate who you are and you can start believing in who you are, then your mind takes over it and you just have to do something about it. I unlocked that door and I had to keep it open. I had to keep following through with it. So in my early 50s, I took the step to sell my business. I ran an IT company for 25 years, took the decision to sell that business. And simultaneously, I transitioned to live my life as female. That journey in itself was about 4 years ago. And that it's been quite a challenge just for me as a person, trying to come up with that, relearning what it's like to be me, how I fit in the world, and also re-establishing a business. I've gone away from running an IT company to speaking on inclusion and belonging and HR and hiring and resourcing. And of course, throughout that phase, I've had my wife, who we've been now married for 34 years, my 2 children in their late 20s, my parents and all my friends. I've had to help them on their journey to find me as well. Because whilst I've had to go on my own journey, I also recognize that everybody else needs to get used to the new me. So it's been an interesting 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, because I've been following you closely on Facebook and social media. Marie is great. Yeah, we're so happy to have Marie she has been a great support to you. Because you are
Yeah,
very lucky.
I think lockdown has cemented our relationship even closer. We like each other. We're good friends with each other. We laugh, we play, we cry, we shout and scream at each other like everybody else does. But we really do get on well. And we talk about people being soulmates. We talk about people being best friends as well as husband, wife, partner. And we're married, but we're friends. We're best friends. We love each other's company. We don't need anybody else to have a good time. We can spend 5 hours in a car driving, and we'll be talking all the way there and all the way back. We're never short of conversation, never short of being interested in each other. So I think it's really powerful. When we're not together, we miss each other. So yeah, Marie has been wonderful, and I know it caused her a lot of distress at the time, and she didn't find it easy. But together we've come through it.
Yeah, sure. Such a great story. And also because you have experience living as both genders. So being a very graceful lady now, do you feel like you're being treated differently as a woman? For instance, since I started my own business, I realized that a lot of male, especially male who are a lot older than me, they probably don't treat me seriously. So what do you think?
I find it really hard to say, because as you can hear, my voice hasn't changed much. I made a conscious decision not to worry about my voice. So most people I talk to still hear that deep, resonant tone of voice, and I think power and authority comes a lot from your body language and the power of your voice. So I recognize I haven't lost that authoritarian type voice. So it's hard to say. I know that being trans in one way has denied me opportunity, but in other ways has created me opportunity. So I wouldn't be taking us seriously talking about what I do and the way I teach and train if I wasn't trans. If I was just a white guy, would I be able to do what I'm doing? So I think by being trans, by being me, it's given me a certain insight into what I do. So it's really hard to say on balance, what have I lost? What have I gained? Because I've got no reference. I've got no example of me in parallel to judge it by. But I have experienced some mansplaining. I've experienced situations where I felt uncomfortable in male-dominated groups. I've noticed that sometimes younger, more attractive women seem to get more opportunities in certain areas than me. So I'm thinking, well, is there a beauty bias going on? I've noticed that I've had examples where people assume I'm less intelligent in some ways. It's hard to quantify. It's just very subtle. Very subtle.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. But I'm also conscious of my own footprint, and I'm looking at what's on telly at the moment about the vigils going on and the rise of the intolerance of violence against women, the rise of intolerance against marginalisation of women, and the lack of opportunities that we face as women over the last centuries. And I feel a sense of shame's the wrong word. I feel a sense of responsibility as someone who lived most of their life as a man. Feel some of the responsibility of not being part of the solution in that time. And maybe I didn't call it out. Maybe I was a problem in certain parts of my life. And I'm now looking and feeling inauthentic about saying, well, because of that background, so it's imposter syndrome. So I feel very divided in my own head about what I could say, because I don't want to start. As I say, I recognise the fact that I lived the majority of my life in a situation where I wasn't perfect. I didn't do all I could, and I wasn't And now, whilst I know I have a different view of the world, I have a different set of friends, I have a different set of outlooks, I've got to be very careful in my own mind that I don't come across hypocritical, maybe not to other people, but I don't want to be hypocritical to myself. I've got to be true.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to stay silent, but I'm also trying not to lose that authenticity. No, so I am. I'm listening to the stories. I'm reading up. I'm understanding what other people are saying, and the shocking statistics that yes, it's not all men, but it is all women that have experienced this. And I've read stories from friends on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I've read articles, listening to other people's stories. And about a year or so back, I read the book Everyday Feminism that talks about the stories of women in life and business, and to hear their stories about what they've experienced. And I do feel connected with this challenge, this struggle, these years of oppression, these years of male dominance, if you like. But I've also, having lived all that time, I'm not saying I've got empathy in the same way for men in that way, but I do understand how the male brain sees things. And I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying or anything like that. I'm not judging anybody, but I can understand why it happens, or I've been in scenarios where it becomes this kind of group thing. It's men together think in a certain way, and they almost give permission to each other to be sexist or to be inappropriate, because they kind of egg each other on, and it's part of that group thing, part of that tribe sort of mentality. So I think it's trying to unpack that. I think that's the challenge, where it's not men as individuals, it's men as groups sometimes, and the alpha male, the strong people in that group can sometimes set the tone and propagate that behavior. So it's really interesting as I'm trying to analyze what's going on, the stories I'm hearing from both sides, and try to put together my own truths, my own feelings. But I feel I'm in that listening phase at the moment, absorbing and trying to understand how I feel, but also understanding how other people feel, so that when I finally piece together what my truth is, my thoughts are, I feel more authentic about it. But yeah, I'm not judging at the moment. I'm just trying to review and trying to understand. But undoubtedly, I recognise that was it 97% of women have had a scenario where something occurred, either casually or overtly, and I have to recognise that for 52 years of my life, I was part of that problem. And how do I atone for that? How do I learn from that? And how do I use my newfound perspective to change things for the better? That's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear about that male mentality. So I believe that you can be a perfect bridge in between male to female. Yeah.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't say a perfect bridge, but I understand how I thought.
Yeah.
And I still have some echoes of that. And it's trying to not apologize, not feel shame, but how to use that knowledge to help people.
Yeah, of course. It's definitely helpful. And also, because I remember you talk about your voice. So let's talk about the self-conscious thing. Because I remember I heard from other male to female transgender, sometimes they probably think, oh, my nose is too big, I have a stronger physique, or I'm too tall. Am I look feminine enough? Are people going to judge me when I walk on the streets? And sometimes they may not feel comfortable to shop for female clothing. So what do you think about self-conscious?
Yeah, I've been through that phase. Well, I'd be worried about what people thought of me. I was trying to aspire to a society's view of femininity and what that meant. And I had my female role models that I wanted to model myself on, around my dress sense, my appearance. And I found myself chasing this ideal of femininity. And as I was chasing this ideal, this dream, I found that all my female friends, all the female role models I was aspiring to be, were running the other way towards me. And it was I was trying to chase this old-fashioned idea of femininity, and I realigned my own sense of self, I suppose. And I realized that it wasn't about how I looked. It was about how I felt, how I was inside, how I expressed myself, how I fitted into society. And once I stopped being hyper-focused on my appearance, I could see past it, and I could then start to relax in myself. You soon realize that most people aren't happy with their body. Even the people that are beautiful, they want smaller waist, they want bigger bum, or they want bigger pecs, or people work out at the gym, they're always chasing that perfect body, that perfectionism. They're always trying to keep their body honed. And I think we're all trying to chase this dream. And there are more people in the world who are not transgender, who have facial surgery, who have boob jobs, who have bum lifts, who have whatever surgery on their body because they don't like the way they look. There's more people who aren't trans that do that. And I think you look at the media, look at the pressure that Instagram, the selfie culture on young girls and on young boys to conform to a certain look, the airbrushing, the filters. And I think we're living in a world where there's so much pressure to look in a certain way.
Yeah, sure.
And I think what happened was I got to the point where I said, I don't want to spend all my life looking to transition, to uncover my true self, to be aspiring to someone else's view of who I am. I don't want to be somebody else again. I want to be me. And once I realized that being me was the important thing, I'm not saying I don't take some pride. I like to look good. I like to have my hair done. I like to have my nails done. I want to wear nice clothes. But I don't do it with any kind of reference point. I choose what I like. And I think, I wish my hands were smaller. I wish my feet were smaller. I wish my shoulders were smaller. I wish I wasn't so muscular. I wish I had more real hair on my head. And I was very conscious about my voice. As you can tell, it's resonant, it's deep, and it does cause a certain level of misgendering when people hear me speak, normally face to face, or when you can't see me over the phone, it causes a lot of problems. And I had a choice: either do something about it, have voice coaching, practice, learn, or accept it. I thought, who am I changing my voice for? Is it to make me feel more comfortable, or is it to make other people feel more comfortable about me? I thought, well, I'm trying to do it for other people. I'm actually happy with my voice. So I've now got to the point where I kind of accept that I'm going to get misgendered from time to time. It'll happen. If they can't see me, they just hear me. Or if I speak before anything else, they'll maybe lock on to the male voice. And I just kind of just shrug my shoulders and go, okay, it's a mistake. I prefer you call me madam, or I prefer you call me miss, or whatever, not sir or mister. And I try and educate in that way, and I'm trying to shrug it off. Yes, it still hurts. It still annoys me. It's still very frustrating, especially if I'm feeling good that day. I get trolled on the internet. I get trolled on comments on articles I write, on posts I make. And it does get frustrating. But I have it relatively easy. The microaggressions, the overt hate I get isn't as bad as many, many other people. So I'm not here having a pity party saying, woe is me. I'd actually say, surprisingly, for who I am, I get very little attention. I get very little problems. In some respects, I sometimes wonder, why aren't I getting attacked? Why aren't I getting people criticizing me or posting anti-trans rhetoric on my posts as much as other people? So I don't understand, but maybe it's a privilege I have. I don't know. But no, to go back to the original point, I have been conscious about my body, my size, my shape, my hands, my feet, my hair, my voice, and I've kind of got used to it. As we talked about earlier, I've been married for 34 years. to a wonderful wife, Marie, we don't want to change anything. I don't need to be attracted to anybody else. I don't need to impress anybody else. I don't need to dance for anybody else. Marie loves me for who I am. She sees me naked, she sees me dressed, and she still loves me. So
Yeah.
who else do I need to impress? Nobody.
Because I have known you for 3-4 years. You always come across as a very graceful and elegant lady to me. You're 100% female and feminine to me. You are Joe.
Oh,
I
thank
can't
you.
image you as a man. Yeah. That's my point of
Thank you.
view. Yeah. You're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And also, let's talk about unconscious bias. And I give myself as an example. For instance, a lot of people, they probably mean well. They just try to make a conversation. But when they see me, they probably got the preconception that I may not speak English or understand that well. So they speak to me at least slowly. Wow, your cat is very big. But that actually makes me feel very uncomfortable because having an accent doesn't mean that you can't communicate in English. So is there anything that you probably mean well, you probably don't mean any harm, but you shouldn't really say to the transgenders or other LGBTQ groups?
Yeah, I mean, again, I consider myself very lucky. English is my first language,
Yeah,
and I live in a country where English is the dominant language.
yeah.
So I know that's a privilege. I know that I can make myself understood. I
Mhm.
don't have a battle with being understood or listening or hearing other people's conversations.
Yeah.
So I know I can function and communicate very well. I can write, I can social media, I can post.
Mhm. Yeah.
The only kind of bias that kicks in sometimes is around the way I look and the way I sound. But yeah, I think when you think about trans people, it's making assumptions that we're all the same. We all want surgery. We've all had surgery. We've all had hormones or want hormones. We all want to transition. Being trans doesn't necessarily mean anything other than your identity isn't that you're aligned with when you were born. You know, someone said you were a girl when you were born. Someone said you were a boy when you're born. But as I said, when you get to the age of 5, 6, or 7, you suddenly realize that isn't who you are. In the same way, I'm left-handed. I know I'm not right-handed. I just know that if I pick up a pen in my right hand, it doesn't feel right. Okay, I may be able to use it. I may be able to use a cut with a pair of scissors, or I may be able to hit with a hammer with my right hand. But it always feels safer and easier in my left hand. And that's no different to gender. You just know what feels right, what feels comfortable, or what feels uncomfortable. So if you're non-binary, you know that you feel uncomfortable with that concept of gender.
Yeah.
So in terms of biases, people try to project their own binary view of the world. They want to label you. They want to make certain assumptions about your sexuality, who your partner is.
Yeah.
Or just trying to stereotype, saying, well, I've met one trans person, therefore I treat you like every other trans person I've met. And so I think it's no different to any other marginalized or minority group where people use these stereotypes or groupings or othering against you. But in terms of unconscious bias, yeah, I think beauty bias, affinity bias, confirmation bias, all these kind of things, you have this belief about people. You have a belief about trans people, and you look to seek out your truth. Yes, I knew Jo would sound differently. She'd look funny, and she does, kind of thing. But yeah, beauty bias, I don't look as attractive as other women. I don't sound attractive like other women. So I don't get flirted with at the bar like other women. Some might argue that's a good thing. That I'm not hit on by men in that way. So I don't have that hit on burden that many women do. But maybe when I am hit on, it's different. I'm hit on because I believe to be easy or desperate in another way. So I'm not saying I don't get hit on. I get hit on quite a bit online. But I'm not. I don't think I'm getting hit on by the typical person in the bar. It's more someone who is attracted to trans people, and those people exist, and those people are great. They're fine. Not denying that they should be able to do that. It's just I just get helped by different people, and maybe people are less obvious by it. So yeah, it's hard to say what biases people attribute to me, because I mean, you probably find this. You can imagine what biases are in play. because they're unconscious, you never really know, do you? You just know
No.
that sometimes you're denied opportunity because of who you are, and
Mhm.
you got to try and turn the bits that you think are causing the problem into strengths. Use them as an asset.
Yeah, sure. For
But it's not
instance,
always easy.
I think my accent and my ethnicity can be a natural filter to filter out malicious people, because most of my clients are quite nice. So if someone is judging me because I'm different, then I don't want to work with that person.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
what
have
I
a similar
think.
view that
Yeah,
I work with customers who want to work with me,
yeah, sure.
and most people approach me because they know who I am.
Yeah, same
So I
here.
don't feel that I'm having to justify who I am to anybody. Because
Yeah.
if you don't like me, you don't like the sound of me, you don't think you want to work with me, then you're probably not going to call me anyway, because I'm not going to call you. In
Yeah,
which
sure.
case, I tend to only deal with people who want to engage, which I often don't feel discriminated against because people are selecting me
Yeah,
in good numbers.
yeah, sure. I agree. And also, let's talk about your business. So how could your diversity and inclusion training help both the employees and employers, and how to enhance the productivity at work?
I think first of all, what I always focus on is you have to understand as a business why
Yeah.
being inclusive,
Hmm.
why creating this positive culture is important. And
Yeah.
yes, we can see Black Lives Matter on television. We can understand the latest rise of the feminist issues we're talking about at the moment, the vigils that's going on at the moment, mental health impacts of people working with COVID under pressure, the NHS workers. We understand all of this stuff. We see it on the telly every day at the moment. But often it's trying to translate what we're seeing into real impact on yourself. Why does it matter to me? What can I do?
Hmm.
How can my business benefit? So that's one of the first things I do is I try and talk to the business leader about trying to understand why it matters. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's the right thing to do, but it also has to have a business outcome. There has to be a reason why you want to hire more women, or increase your gender mix, or create a culture that is where people can thrive. They can communicate. There's openness. You stamp out bad language, racism, sexism.
Hmm.
You have to understand why that matters. You have to understand what it's going to do to your business and what the culture change, how it will impact you. So I think that's where I'd like to start with organizations when I have those conversations, is that really get to understand what their why is. Why does it
Yeah.
matter to them as a person? And as a person, why does it matter to their business? And can they have conversations around racism? Can they have conversations around sexism? Can they have conversations around ableism or homophobia, and really understand the impact of those? And it's one of the things when I was saying to you earlier is trying to understand my own perspective on the male violence we're talking about at the moment, and trying to find my own authenticity and listen to lots of stories to try and formulate my own thoughts on it in context to my two lives.
Yeah.
And I like to think I do spend a lot of time analyzing these conversations to really find that viewpoint. And I encourage other people to try and do that research, do that listening, do that thinking, watch these documentaries, really understand people's lived experience, because then you can start to understand what the impact on somebody is. And when you watch the Meghan Markle interview, whether you think she's telling the truth, whether you think it's just a family squabble, whatever you may think, can you hear a woman crying for help, a woman who has had major mental health difficulties, a woman who's felt isolated? Whether you think she should have known better is not relevant, but can you hear that cry? Can you hear that scream? And I think that's what we need to remember, is listening to people, really understanding what they're going through, and not creating this judgment to discount or erase or or, or excuse what's going on, because then to put the blame back onto them. But it's their fault for doing this. It's their fault for not knowing better. It's their fault. Hang on a minute. The person we're talking about here is a victim, a target, a person that has had to suffer this abuse or this
Yeah.
treatment because of who they are. And I think unless you can get that connection with that scenario, you just brush it off. It's
Yeah,
just somebody
sure.
else's life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want to try and talk to people about, getting that why, try and understand their stories, and then think about how their business can be an ally, if you like,
Hmm.
to their people, their staff, their stakeholders, but also understand how their customers perceive them. You know, everyone's got a brand.
Yeah.
So what does your brand say about you? What are your values? What are your credentials? What are your inclusion, your belonging? How do you treat your staff? What are your environmental sustainability? All these kind of things are really important to the younger generation. So if your business isn't really focused on these core issues, then it will start to become less relevant. You'll start to realize that you're not speaking to your customers in the same way, or they're turning off. And we've seen high street shops close. We've seen brands disappear, where they've just ceased to keep pace and be relevant with today's market. And I think that's the power of inclusion. That's the power of having different voices. That's the power of listening to your people, listening to your staff, listening to your stakeholders, and actually really understanding how people, when people feel excluded or marginalized or discriminated against, how they feel, how you treat them. It causes them to feel in a certain way. And I think that's one of the powerful lessons that businesses can learn, that they can leverage this belonging, this culture, this employee engagement, the employee experience about how we treat our people, rather than just traditional command and control. If I can't see you, I can't trust you. You work as directed. I don't want people to think. I want people to just do as they're told. And I think we've got to see the way the world of work is evolving to being a more inclusive, more collaborative, more neural network type environment, especially if we're going to be working in co-located premises, maybe from home, from work remotely, wherever that may be. We need to be able to trust our people more. We need to be able to trust that people can engage and collaborate and look after each other without it being kind of a very centric based, yes, a hub and spoke. We need to have a more networked approach to looking after our people.
Yeah, perfect. So it all makes sense, because I mean, in the workplace, people need to get on and understand each other to be able to be productive. And also, could you give a case study about how you help a client during the pandemic in terms of diversity and inclusion training? Yeah.
I mean, during the pandemic, I've been one of the fortunate businesses where my my workload has gone up. I'm a lot busier now than I was before the pandemic. A lot easier to connect. So I deliver most of my training, most of my consultancy now online, via Zoom or Teams, whereas before it was face to face. But I've worked with organisations, some very big organisations, helped them roll out a program of wellbeing to their senior leadership team and direct reports. I've run 12-week programs for people.
Yeah.
And because it's online, because it makes it more accessible, people can now easily give up an hour or two for training, whereas before to take a whole day out or to travel to a different office was really awkward. So yeah, I mean, I have worked for a couple of companies, and the feedback I've got is it has shown a tangible impact on the well-being, on the scores, because they do employee engagement surveys. They can actually see a measurable increase in employee engagement and satisfaction levels from the start of their program through to the end. Okay, I didn't deliver the entire program, but I was a significant part of some of that program. So my contribution had a direct impact on improving employee engagement scores and the well-being and motivation of the staff, especially at the leadership level, where they were feeling kind of lost and out, not really having much direction around inclusion and belonging. So it's definitely created this sort of like this tier of management now that feel more empowered.
Yeah, sure. And also, because there's a very fine line between discrimination and personal opinion. So if someone says something to make you feel uncomfortable, how do you define that is discrimination or just the personal opinion of that person?
Well, people forget that most of what they say is opinion, and it's their opinion. They believe sometimes it's advice or instruction or education. You know, they feel like they have to tell me something because that's their opinion, and I treat it as such. You know, I treat it as an opinion. It's not necessarily the truth, a fact. It's their opinion, and I would often push back and say, "So tell me why you think that." Not in a confrontational challenge way, but just, oh, that's interesting. Why do you think that? Or what led you to that conclusion? And from that, you can try and uncover where their opinion comes from. But yeah, discrimination or harassment, I'm quite privileged that I don't get a lot of it. I'm not the target of a lot of discrimination, a lot of harassment that I'm aware of. So but I mean, when we're working remotely, I have the choice to turn it off, to delete it, to hide it, to block it if I'm getting that sort of abuse. And face to face, take yourself out of the situation, find an ally, find a mentor. Yeah, I mean, I talk about the CIA model: control, influence, accept. If you can't control something and you can't influence something, you have to accept it. So if you're getting bullied or harassed, you may not be able to control that, what that person does, but you can influence your reaction. You can influence the environment to do something about it, because what we don't want to do is fine. We're just accepting intolerance or accepting being bullied. So yeah, I would say either influence it or change, move on. I hate to say it. Sometimes the easiest way is to move on, but that then propagates the situation for anyone who follows you. So it's trying to find that courage, trying to find that someone you could be your mentor, your ally, to help you stand up and report, to call it out, to challenge. And I know that's not everybody's personal strength, but that's where these vigils, movements are valid, because they give you that strength. They give you that knowing you're not alone. It's just not just your story. But yeah, I think if you are being harassed or bullied, then find someone, speak to somebody. Don't feel alone. Don't internalize it.
Yeah, of course.
Find a way out.
Yeah, of course. And also one last thing. So any tips to SMEs in this very difficult time? For instance, I know you have invested quite a bit on the gear, so you can do broadcasting and training at home. And I love your YouTube tutorial videos about presenting online. So do you want to talk about the tips? Yeah.
Tips, yeah. Well, one of the golden rules I always say to people is stay within your technical competency.
Yeah.
It's when you're presenting online or trying to sell online or trying to present yourself in an online world, if the technology gets in your way, it will detract from your message. And if you've got a good message, the technology isn't necessarily going to make your message better. So technology is kind of like the supporting act. It's the part of your package that makes you look good, but it doesn't become the thing, if you like. So I always encourage people to think about their technology as an assistant, as the same as a car that gets you to the appointment. It's a good car, it's a nice car, it's a comfortable car. If you've got a very nice car, you arrive relaxed, you've chilled out with nice music, you've put the cruise control on, you've got sat nav, you know when you're going to be there. So, but the car isn't the presentation. So this is just a vehicle that gets you to a point where you can deliver and be yourself. So yeah, making sure that it doesn't become too many bells and whistles and too many gadgets, but it's just about the right amount to give you confidence, to give you credibility, to make sure you sound good, to make sure that your camera is good. So, and the other way I describe it is a bit like a game of Monopoly. Don't put all your hotels on one property. Put houses everywhere. So build up your lighting, build up your camera, build up your sound, build up your presentation, your screens and things. Don't just go for the biggest, most expensive camera with poor lighting. So you need to upgrade incrementally, slowly. Become comfortable, add a bit more. And my setup evolved over the course of 12 months. I started with a little tiny laptop, one microphone, and a couple of tiny lights. And now I've got screens, lights, laptops everywhere. So, but that took me 12 months to evolve it. So I think don't feel any FOMO, don't feel any pressure. Oh, everyone else is doing this, I must do it. Think about what you love about what you do, and the bits you want to improve. You know, it would be great if I sounded better. It would be great if the lighting was better. It would be great if the camera looked clearer. And then just pick those little things to start with, and don't just say, "Well, I need to spend several £1,000s on everything, because
Yeah,
often
cool.
it's just the little things. But yeah, also recognize some of it is confidence. If the technology gives you confidence, makes you feel prouder, makes you feel more self-assured, then
Mhm.
maybe it's that placebo effect you want as well. So I'm all in favor of whatever gives you that buzz, whatever gives you that edge.
Yes, true. And also I have to thank you, because I remember in 2019, you encouraged me to do more videos. But to be honest, like that time, I was conscious on my own accent, because I don't sound 100% British. I wasn't sure. But then during the pandemic, I just decided to do more videos, do more like podcasting and interviews. And I feel good now. Thanks very much, Joe, for your
Yeah.
advice. Yeah, I don't have fancy
I
gears.
started a podcast, and
Yeah,
as I've said several times in this chat, I'm conscious about my voice sometimes.
yeah.
I've done a lot of podcasts.
Mhm.
I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours online videos, training, and Zoom calls. So I'm not conscious about my video anymore. I still get a bit anxious around pre-recorded material, because I find it really, really hard sometimes when you're just yourself in a room trying to
Yeah.
record video, where there's no one smiling at you, no one laughing at you, no
Mhm.
one looking at you.
Yeah.
It's really thankless doing your own video recording, and
Mhm.
I find that really, really draining. But
Yeah.
yeah, with practice, I can sit down and say, right, I write a script out, and I'll talk the script through. And yes, you can do it. But yeah, everyone has their own demons, their own anxieties,
Yeah,
their
sure.
own
Yeah.
worries about how they look,
Mhm.
their backgrounds.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you just got to do it, because you care more than anybody else.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
I've spent hours doing things, and I think I've got 15 views on YouTube. Well, all that
Mhm.
panic, but 15 people to watch it. But at least I know it's there, and I'm proud of it, and I can show it to somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, just do it, get it out there.
So I would like to say Clubhouse or radio is still out of my comfort zone, but if you're doing a video or webinar, people can see your face, they can see your eyes, they can see your passion. So no one really care about if your voice is deeper, if I have an accent. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Clubhouse. I've been to a few rooms, I've had a few
Mhm.
talks there, but yeah, for the same reason you said, voice. It's not my chosen platform right now.
Mhm. Yeah.
If I was invited into a room, I may go, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm not a voice only person, really.
Mhm. And also my industry is quite visual. I'm always a quite visual person. I like listening, but it would be great to have a visual thing as well. So I always prefer
Hmm.
videos. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much for the interview today. And I'm really
That's
glad
great.
to
Thank
hear
you.
that you are doing very well during this pandemic. Very inspiring. So I encourage myself to work harder. Thanks very much, Joe. Have a
Thanks, man.
lot.
I really appreciate you
Yeah.
bringing me on today and having a chat. It's been
Yeah.
really good to talk to you again.
Yeah, sure. Same here. Thanks very much. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.